Morning everyone, myself Dr. Sejal Gamit. Today I am going to discuss morphology of cell injury and intracellular accumulation of various substances. Today's competencies are distinguish between reversible and irreversible cell injury, to study morphology of cell injury, and to study intracellular accumulation of fats, protein, carbohydrates and pigments. Learning objectives of today's competency are: at the end of the lecture, you are able to define reversible and irreversible cell injury, able to discuss mechanism, morphological and ultrastructural changes of reversible and irreversible cell injury, as well as able to describe various intracellular accumulation. As we have previously described in our lecture, let's take overview of cell injury. We all know that cells remain in a homeostasis, means cells remain in a steady state, but whenever cell is exposed to stress whenever there is increase in the demand, the cell try to escape from the cell injury by undergoing adaptation. But when the cell is unable to adapt, or when the injurious stimuli persist for a longer duration, it may lead to cell injury. If the injurious stimuli is mild, the changes are irreversible, so the injury becomes reversible. But if the injurious stimuli persists for a longer duration, it may lead to cell death in terms of necrosis and apoptosis. So, what is reversible cell injury? In early stages or mild form of injury, the functional and morphological changes meaning gross and microscopic changes are reversible if the damaging stimulus is removed. The injury has typically not progressed to severe membrane damage and nuclear dissolution. This is the mechanism of reversible cell injury. Whenever there is ischemia, there is decreased oxidative phosphorylation of ADP, which decreases production of ATP. Whenever the ATP production is decreased, there is derangement in the function of sodium-potassium pump, which lead to more influx of Na plus together with increased influx of Ca plus 2 and H2O. And there is increased efflux of K plus from the cell, which lead to swelling of the endoplasmic reticulum, cellular swelling, and loss of microvilli and bleb formation. Whenever the ATP production is decreased by oxidative phosphorylation, there is increase in the ATP production by anaerobic glycolytic pathway, in which ATP is produced by hydrolysis of glycogen, which decreases glycogen, and due to the increase in the anaerobic glycolysis, there is increased lactic acid formation, which decreases pH, resulting in clumping of nuclear chromatin. Whenever the ATP production is decreased, it causes detachment of the ribosome and subsequently decreased protein synthesis. What is irreversible cell injury? It is also called cell death. Persistence, extensive damage beyond the ability of the cell to repair is irreversible cell injury. There are two types of cell death, necrosis and apoptosis, which we will discuss later on. Mechanism of irreversible cell injury. Characteristic feature of irreversible cell injury are irreversible mitochondrial dysfunction and profound membrane disturbance, both of which lead to lysosomal membrane damage, leakage of proteolytic enzyme into the cytoplasm, and which ultimately causes cell death. This figure illustrates the difference between reversible and irreversible cell injury. When the cell is exposed to milder form of injury or milder form of stimulus, there are certain changes in the cell, like swelling of the endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria, as well as membrane bleb formation. But if the stimulus is removed, the changes are reversible. But if the stimuli persists for a longer duration, it may lead to fragmentation of the cell membrane and nucleus, as well as leakage of the lysosomal content into the cytoplasm, which ultimately lead to cell death or irreversible cell injury. This figure illustrates the sequential morphological changes in cell injury progressing to cell death. As you have seen in this figure, cell may become rapidly non-functional after the onset of injury, although they are still viable with potentially reversible damage. A longer duration of injury may eventually lead to irreversible injury and cell death. Note that irreversible biochemical alteration may cause cell death, and this typically proceed ultrastructural, light microscopy, and grossly visible morphological changes. Let us see morphology of reversible cell injury. The characteristic light microscopic feature of reversible cell injury are cellular swelling. It is also called hydrophobic change or vascular degeneration and fatigue change. Cellular swelling. It is the first manifestation of all form of injury. It occurs when cells fail to maintain ionic and fluid homeostasis. It appears as a small clear vacuoles. As you see in the figure, it is the normal architecture of the kidney in which you can see normal epithelium of the tubules as well as the hydrophobic change means clear vacuoles in the tubules. Fatty change. It is manifested by the appearance of lipid vacuoles in the cytoplasm. It is seen in liver, heart and kidney. You can see clear cytoplasmic vacuoles in the fatty liver and compare it with normal liver. Both these cellular swelling as well as fatty changes are reversible if you remove the stimulus. Ultrastructural changes in the reversible cell injury are alteration of the cell membrane such as formation of bleb as well as loss of microvilli, swelling of and formation of small density in the mitochondria and swelling of endoplasmic reticulum and detachment of the ribosome. Let us see morphology of irreversible cell injury. It is characterized by increased cytoplasmic eosinophilia, cytoplasmic vacuolization, and nuclear chromatin clumping. As first figure demonstrates the normal tubule, while in the second figure you can easily see there is increase in the eosinophilia as well as cytoplasmic vacuolization, and in the final figment you can easily see there is loss of nuclei which ultimately lead to death of the cell. The characteristic feature of the irreversible changes are the nuclear changes, in which normal nucleus show characteristic changes like pycnosis. The nucleus becomes smaller, which is followed by karyoresis is the fragmentation of the nucleus, and ultimately karyolysis is the loss of nucleus, which lead to cell death. Ultrastructural changes in the irreversible cell injury are breaks in the cellular and organelle membrane, large amorphous density in the mitochondria, and nuclear changes that consist of pycnosis, karyorexis, and karyolysis. This figure illustrates an ultrastructural feature of reversible and irreversible cell injury. In the first figure, you can easily see the normal microvilli of the kidney, while in the second figure you can easily see there is loss of microvilli as well as formation of the membrane bleb, which are the characteristic feature of cell injury. Now let us see the morphology of cell injury, particularly intracellular accumulation. What is intracellular accumulation? It is the manifestation of metabolic derangement in the cell. Accumulation may be transient and reversible or permanent. Effect may range from harmless to toxic. There are various kinds of accumulation. There is accumulation of constitute of normal cell metabolism, that is fats, protein and carbohydrate. Accumulation of abnormal substance of abnormal cell metabolism, that is Tourette disease or inborn error of metabolism, and accumulation of pigment that consists of endogenous pigment or exogenous pigment. Now let us see the mechanism of intracellular accumulation. Whenever there is abnormal metabolism or whenever the rate of metabolism is inadequate to remove the endogenous substance which is produced as a normal or increased rate. These substances are accumulated in the cell. Example is the fatty liver. In the second figure, whenever there is defect in the protein folding or transport, the mutated protein get accumulated inside the cell. The example is mutated alpha-1 antitrypsin is deposited in the liver in case of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. This figure explains that whenever there is lack of enzyme which are required to metabolize certain substances like lipid and carbohydrate, whenever there is lacking of this enzyme, these substances are accumulated in the cell, particularly in the lysosomes. And another figure explains there is deposition of exogenous substance into the cell. Why this exogenous substance deposited in the cell? Because the cell has neither the capacity to remove this substance nor have the ability to transport it to the other side. The example is silica. Now let us see the intracellular accumulation one by one. First of all is the intracellular accumulation of lipid. The example is the fatty change which we have already discussed. It is also called as steatosis and fatty metamorphosis. It is intracellular accumulation of neutral fat, triglyceride within the parenchyma of the cell. Fatty change is most common in liver, heart, skeletal muscle and kidney. Causes of fatty liver are alcohol abuse, diabetes mellitus, obesity, protein malnutrition, drugs, anorexia and pregnancy. In this condition, there is deposition of the fatty acids into the parenchyma of the cell. In this figure, you can see the gross feature of the fatty liver. The liver has a glistening capsule and tan in color, while in the microscopy, you can see the cytoplasmic vacuole inside the hepatocytes. Other lipid accumulation like cholesterol and cholesterol esters. In atherosclerosis, cholesterol accumulate in smooth muscle cell and macrophages in the intima of the arteries. In hereditary hyperlipidemia, cholesterol accumulates in macrophages, usually under the skin, forming tumor-like structure that is known as xanthomas. This is the figure of normal artery. Okay, and it is the cut section of the artery. Whenever there is tear in the wall, in case of diabetes, hypertension or inflammation, any kind of injury which may lead to tear in the arterial wall, lead to deposition of fat inside the vessel wall, which consequently lead to formation of atheromatous plaque, and complication of which is formation of the atheromatous plaque which narrow the lumina as well as complicated by the formation of blood clot or hemorrhage into the atheromatous plaque which causes narrowing of the lumen and consequently changes of myocardial infarction. This is the normal cut section of the artery. In the right figure, you can see there is narrowing of the lumen due to the formation of atheromatous plaque, and this atheromatous plaque is formed by, as seen in the left figure, it is formed by deposition of macrophages, cholesterol crystal, RBC, as well as sperm cell and fat deposited into the arterial lumina. Now let us see the intracellular accumulation of protein. Protein gets accumulated whenever there is excess loss of protein in the urine, as in the nephrotic syndrome. It is also get accumulated whenever there is increased synthesis and secretion of protein, as well as whenever there is defect in the protein folding. The nephrotic syndrome is a condition in which there is excessive loss of protein into the urine which get accumulated in the tubules. Multiple myeloma is a condition in which there is excessive synthesis and secretion of protein, and defect in protein folding in which the defected protein, like in alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, alpha-1 antitrypsin get deposited into the liver parenchyma. First figure explain that whenever the protein is lost in urine, it is reabsorbed by the tubules. So it is deposited in the tubules. You can easily see the round eosinophilic bodies inside the tubules. The Mullary-Hyaline body and the Russell body in multiple myeloma are also the classical example of intracellular accumulation of protein. Now let us see the intracellular accumulation of glycogen. Glycogen is deposited whenever there is defect in the glycogen infiltration or whenever the glycogen storage is increased. Glycogen also appears as a clear vacuoles in the cytoplasm of the cell. Glycogen is deposited in case of hyperglycemia, okay, and it is deposited in the kidney, liver and cardiac muscle fiber. This is the figure of kidney. Whenever there is hyperglycemia, glycogen is deposited in the tubules which appear as a clear vacuoles. So how will you differentiate clear vacuoles of glycogen fat and fatty acid? There is a special stain which demonstrates glycogen, and this special stain is PAS, that is periodic acid skiff. Now let us discuss about the various pigments. Pigments are colored substances, some of which are normal constituent of the cells like melanin, whereas others are abnormal and accumulate in cells only under special circumstances. There are exogenous, endogenous and artifactual pigment. Some exogenous pigments are carbon, silica, asbestos, while the ingested pigment are silver, lead, arsenic and injected pigment are tattoo. So, which are the inhaled pigment? The most common exogenous inhaled pigment is carbon. It is also called as an anthracotic pigment and pathological condition known as anthracosis. Whenever this pigment is inhaled, it is picked up by the macrophages within the alveoli and it is transported through the lymphatic channels to regional lymph node in the tracheobronchial region. In this, you can see the deposition of carbon pigment in the lung parenchyma. And in this figure, you can easily see the black pigment in the lung parenchyma as well as in the draining lymph node. Injected pigment. Injected exogenous pigment. Tattooing is a form of localized exogenous pigmentation of skin. The pigments inoculated are phagocytosed by the dermal macrophages in which they reside for the remainder of their life. Certain ingested pigment are the argyria due to the chronic ingestion of silver. Carotonemia is the yellowish red discoloration of skin and chronic lead poisoning in which you can see blue lines on the teeth. Now let us discuss certain endogenous pigment. They are hematogenous and non-hematogenous. Hematogenous pigments are hemosiderin, hemoglobin and bile pigment, and non-hematogenous pigment are melanin and lipofuscin. Let us first discuss some non-hematogenous pigment, that is lipofuscin and melanin. So what is lipofuscin? It is an insoluble pigment. It is also known as a lipochrome or wear and tear pigment or aging pigment. It is made up of polymer of lipids and phospholipid in complex with protein. It is not injurious to the cell. It is a telltale sign of free radical injury and lipid peroxidation. In the cut section, it appears as a yellowish brown, finely granular, cytoplasmic, often perinuclear pigment. It is seen in cell undergoing slow regressive changes and is particularly prominent in myocardium and liver. It is also seen in patients with severe malnutrition and cancer cachexia. In this figure, you can see perinuclear yellowish brown pigment in the myocardium as well as in the liver parenchyma. Now let us discuss what is melanin. It is endogenous non-hemoglobin derived brown black pigment. It is the only endogenous brown black pigment. Melanin is formed when the enzyme tyrosinase catalyzes the oxidation of tyrosine to dihydroxyphenylalanine in melanocyte. There are certain disorders which is caused by melanin. Whenever there is increased production of melanin, it may lead to hyperpigmentation. The pigmentation may be generalized, such as in Addison disease, chloasma, and arsenic poisoning, or it may be localized, as in capillary spots and lentigo. So, certain example of the hyperpigmentation, generalized hyperpigmentation are chloasma of pregnancy and Addison disease, whereas the localized example is capillary spots. Whenever the melanin production is decreased, it is termed as hyperpigmentation, which may be generalized as in albinism or localized, such as in vitiligo or leukoderma. This is the classical example of melanin hypopigmentation. Generalized melanin hypopigmentation is albinism, while these are the example of localized hypopigmentation, that is vitiligo, leprosy, fungal infection. Now, what is ochronosis? It is due to the deposition of pigment, that is homogenesic acid, a black pigment that occurs in a patient with alkaptonuria, a rare metabolic disease. In this condition, urine blackens on standing due to the oxidation. Now, let us describe certain hemoglobin derived pigment, that is hemosiderin. It is a hemoglobin derived golden yellow to brown granular pigment in which form iron is stored in the cells. Hemosiderin pigment represents aggregate of ferritin micelles. Hemosiderin is deposited in the certain condition. The localized example is hemorrhage, while in the generalized condition, whenever, like classical example is the chronic hemolytic disorder, blood transfusion and parenteral admission of iron. In this condition, hemosiderin is deposited in the organ. The localized example of hemosiderin deposition is the black eye. Whenever there is hematoma, there is extravasation of the blood. Now this extravasated RBC is ingested by the macrophages, lead to breakdown of the RBC and liberation of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is made up of heme plus globin, in which heme is made up of iron plus protoporphyrin, in which this iron is stored as a ferritin, while the protoporphyrin is converted into bilirubin and biliverdin and consequently bilirubin, which show the characteristic changes in the color of the hematoma. This figure shows the dark brown discoloration of liver and pancreas in case of hemosiderosis due to the deposition of iron. Hemosiderin granules in the liver, it appears as a golden brown color. There is a special stain for hemosiderin granules or iron stain that is termed as a that is termed that is called PAS stain. PAS stain highlights iron granules in the parenchyma, in which iron appear as a bluish in color. The full form of Prussian blue, it is the Prussian blue reaction which highlights iron granules. Now let us discuss hemochromatosis. It is an autosomal dominant inborn error of metabolism resulting in loss of normal regulation of iron absorption. This results in excessive absorption of iron in the body. So, what is the difference between hemochromatosis and hemosiderosis? Hemochromatosis is excessive deposition of iron causing tissue damage, while hemosiderosis is used to indicate severe deposition of iron without organ or tissue damage. It is non-specific and has no clinical meaning. Bilirubin. It is a normal, non-iron containing pigment present in the bile. It is derived from the hemoglobin. It appears as a yellowish green granular pigment. Excess bilirubin is seen in conditions like jaundice. In infant, rise in unconjugated bilirubin may produce toxic brain injury that is called as kernicterus. In the figure, you can see the deposition of the bilirubin pigment in the liver parenchyma, which appear as a yellowish green pigment. Certain artifactual pigments are formalin, mercury, chromic oxide, and malarial pigment. The example of the artifactual pigment is the malarial pigment is hemozoin, which is seen in macrophages and hepatocytes in case of malaria. It appears as a brownish black coarse granules. In this figure, you can see infected red cell in malaria containing parasites form and hemozoin pigment that is brownish black in color. So this is all about the pigment. References of my today's lecture are here. Thank you.